Hey there, it's Unique History Channel. Today we're going to be doing a reading from My Struggle by Vladimir ZHIRINOVSKY, and we'll be doing part 3, The Threat from the South. Politics consumes my time and energy. I read a wide variety of newspapers, party programs, flyers, proclamations. I pore over a lifetime on religion, economics, history, tracts of sociology, armed forces, foreign countries, and parties. I have studied many political subjects, including the systemization of parties, which I wrote about more than 20 years ago in a monogram titled The Political Parties of Turkey. For years now, I reflected on my state authority and its components. They offer a riddle that cannot be solved by former physicists or biologists who are today's latecomers to politics. To study the state, you need a decade-plus intellectual steep in public affairs, the reaction that followed Stalin's death, Khrushchev's rise to power, Brezhnev, the removal of Podrodny, and the death of Kolakov, and the appearance of Gorbachev, Andropov, Zhirinovsky, and Yeltsin. These successive events provide a rich understanding of politics, government traditions, and coups, but if they are actually lived and experienced. To grasp them solely from books is impossible. To become a French person merely from reading French history. At an early age, I developed my own geopolitical theory, although I gave it no fancy name as the ZHIRINOVSKY formula. It's a clear premise that the salvation of Russian nation lies on the last bid for the South, the opening for Russia to the shores of the Indian Ocean and the Mediterranean Sea. Cutting ourselves off from Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, and Central Asia, some parties advocate squeezes Russia into a tundra where, despite the presence of rich mineral resources, a people cannot live and develop. Civilization has always sunk in the south, with later northward movements taking place only after the mass accumulation of populations. To push ourselves into an inhospitable tundra of the north will only destroy our nation, and thus was born my idea of the last bid for the south. The last, because it will be the most likely last repartition required by history. Russia will become a four-sided platform with the Arctic Ocean to the north, and the Pacific Ocean to the east, to the west the Black Sea and the Mediterranean, and the Baltic Sea with access to the Atlantic. When we came against the Indian Ocean to the south, we will finally achieve peace with our neighbors, and with friendly India in forming a peace and serene Russo-Indian border. We will likewise have to make a Russo-Chinese border, creating a nation whose division or dismemberment is impossible. Nationality will not be used as a certification for this political subdivisions. Instead, divisions within the country will be based on territorial principles, gubernaria, oblasts, provinces, uzeds, whatever name you give them, with no national implications. Mixing of people is a result of economic factors, the dominance of the Russian language, currency, and army. This is a historical fait accompli that makes stability possible in our region. It is an historical tourism. It is no dream or fantasy, it is reality. Today the South coming undone with the uprisings and rebellions. The Afghans fight Tajiks, Iranians against Turkmens, southern Azerbaijan against northern Azerbaijan. Georgia puts a squeeze on Armenia and is in turn squeezed by Ossetia and Abkhazia. The conflicts in the Middle East may not end for a long time and could even trigger a third world war. These ancient enemies who have fought are bent on blood revenge and cannot be reconciled, but humanity will not permit this state of constant hostilities on Russia's southern flank, in the Caucasus, Central Asia, and the Middle East. And for the world has grown weary of war and cries out for peace. When the fighting in the South finally ends, America will be more secure against the communist, Islamic, and pan-Islamic threat. The ensuing peace will be a significant geopolitical accomplishment, freeing a tremendous territory to be devoted to resorts of and sanitaria that will serve industrial North and peoples of all nationality. There will be a single economy, legal and political space, creating favorable conditions for the development of all enterprises, cultures, education, and a strong family. There will be water service, sewers, small-scale factories along and the necessary infrastructure, transportation, and communications. All these achievements are possible if we carry out our last bid for the South, a move that will prevail, not to be the liking of the people in Kabul, Tehran, or Ankara, but will, nevertheless, better the lives of millions. It is impossible to realize a democracy while blood is being spilled in the South, when theft, murder, and rape are rampant, deeply traumatizing children. The Southern Territory from Lezidez to Danshub will soon be strewn with corpses, as will Suhamki, Omachari, Nagorno-Karabakh, Fergana, and the Pamir Mountains. Whole families and entire peoples will be butchered. Uzbekistan decides to kick out the Turks, so if 30,000 are thrown out in a few days, Uzbekistan could also kick out Koreans if they felt necessary. All this barbarism, monstrosity, is part of politics. The South has always been and always will be the origin of Russia's misfortune. It was the South that spawned corruption when Stalin, who ruled Russia despotically for 30 years, created favorable conditions for Georgia, his homeland. From Georgia, the corruption spread to Armenia and Azerbaijan, jumped to the Central Asia, and finally embraced the entire country. With the death of Stalin, Kremlin leaders failed to grasp the extent of the moral rot. Stalin at least had a definite goal: to repay to Georgia by allowing his homeland an easier time under his rule, a tendency towards favoritism that Khrushchev continued. Perhaps Georgia should have never been incorporated into the Russian Empire, which would have left Turkey our neighbor. In such a world, trade with Turkey would be more tranquil as it is today. When Russia and Turkey are separated by a bleeding wound, we need a different frontier. Kazakhstan and Kyrgyzstan in the south should automatically be incorporated into Russia, with the fate of Tajikistan and eastern Uzbekistan to be decided later. Russia must include western Uzbekistan and Karakalpika, which are naturally drawn to Russia, as well as Turkmenia, gain its borders that are firm and permanent. We can temporarily separate ourselves from Azerbaijan, Armenia, and part of Georgia, although I am positive Armenia will want to remain a part of Russian territory. Likewise, Abkhazia and South Ossetia should be part of Russia. How then will events unfold in the Caucasus, with Iran and Turkey maneuvering and the Kurdish question always with us? It is a fact that the region could explode, especially since Turkey dreams about Turan, a great Turkic state stretching to the Altai Mountains and comprising Turkey, Azerbaijan, and Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, and Kyrgyzstan. As I write, 150 Turkish officers are training Azerbaijan's army, against which enemy is the army poised. There are plans to send 60,000 students from Central Asia to Ankara and Istanbul. And what is the purpose of their training, if not to make them into Turkish nationalists and agents of Turkish influence? Turkey and Iran have no future if either should be drawn to adventurism in the Caucasus, nor from that matter does Afghanistan, whose adventurism is directed against Tajikistan. These states will be dismembered. Indeed, the Afghans are not even a people. The country of Afghanistan really consists of Balachis, Pashtuns, Dadis, Tajiks, and Uzbeks, will be broken down into territorial units such as Kabul, a southern province of Afghanistan. The name Afghanistan has got to go, replaced by the names of its real people: Pashtuns, Tajiks, and Uzbekistan. India, in turn, has to be reunited with Pakistan. Iran, for its part, is really southern Azerbaijan, which is ready to reunite with northern Azerbaijan, a region already leaning towards the reunification with Turkey. At some point, Iran and Turkey will surely clash in the Caucasus. A portion of southern Iran, where the population is Arab, is drawn to Iraq. Parts of the western Turkey are drawn to Bulgaria and Greece, while Cyprus seeks to throw off Turkish influence. And what about the Kurds, who many of whom are in Iran? Well, more than 10 million, perhaps 15 million Kurds are in Turkey. Then there is Western Armenia. And what of the Balachis for a long time who have sought independence? The whole area could explode, resulting in the dismemberment of Turkey, Iran, and Afghanistan, not because of Russian soldiers, certainly because of Russian material purchased from us with convertible dollars and used by the Mujahideen, the Bushmans, or the other fighters. Let them fight each other, Farsi speakers against Turkic speakers, Sunnis against Shias, Balochis against Persians, Turks against Kurds, the Daris and the Pashtuns and the Tajiks, and the scores of nationalities, tribes, and clans commanders who will make a bloody mess. Only a rejuvenated Russia, once again, has arisen and stabilized the situation by building a mighty army in the south near Verny, with the former city of Alma-Ata, where its southern borders will lie. The concentration presence of Russian troops will press upon the Central Asiatic region, leading in the end to an opening to the Indian Ocean. An agreement with Kabul and Tehran will be necessary to provide Russia with a corridor between Afghanistan and Iran. With this outlet to the sea, Russia will have an opportunity to become a stabilizing force in the region. Armenia and Georgia must re-establish their borders. If Georgia loses Abkhazia, it can receive part of the Black Sea coast of Turkey in the direction of the village of Saprai. Armenia can expand to the region of Tabaraz and Saman to the Black Sea. Diyarbakir will become the new capital of the Kurdish state, and by drawing Kurds from Syria, Iraq, and Iran, solve the Kurdish problem. Iskendrum in Turkey South, which is illegally seized from Syria by the departure of the French, should go to Syria, free of the Kurds of gaining territory in Syria along with Iraq, will become a powerful ally to Russia. Both Syria and Iraq will become multinational Arab countries with added territory and improved security that in way could change be beneficial to Israel, so some Palestinians can be settled in the regions formerly belonging to southern Turkey and Iran. True Farsi and Turkic-speaking peoples may suffer, but others, the majority, will benefit in a stroke of historic injustice. These changes will be to the advantages of the Orthodox Church. We should return all houses of God in Anatolia into Orthodox Church, allowing the bells of Russian Orthodox Church to ring out against the shores of the Indian Ocean and Mediterranean Sea. Indeed, the Cathedral of St. Sophia and Isabel, now a mosque, was once a more Orthodox Church. Jerusalem would be nearby, and our tomb of our Lord, and a holy place to Muslims, Jews, and other Christians, Orthodox and otherwise. So church orthodoxy in the southern region of Russia will be beneficial. We will prove to the world our model in the 21st century. It will include the strengthening of Eastern Europe and Russia and the dismantling of artificial states of Turkey, Iran, and Afghanistan, which historically comprised nomadic tribes skilled in the black arts of robbery, incursions, and hostage-taking. 5 centuries ago, Turkish horsemen galloped into the west, where the peaceful Byzantine Empire, the seat of scholarship, art, and craftsmanship, was prospering. The annexation that followed spawned Istanbul, the capital of the Turkish state, in place of Constantinople, capital of the Byzantine Empire. Everything must be finally returned to our circle to unite once again Jerusalem with the Christian world. Then the bells of the Christian Orthodox Church will once again ring out in Constantinople, and the war in the Caucasus will once and for all end. Kurds, Armenians, Azerbaijanis, Persians, Balochis, Daris, Pashtuns, Khazarites, Uzbeks, Kyrgyz, Kazakhs, all the diverse peoples of the region will there live together, freely united by the Russian language, currency, and a single Russian army in which applicants would fight to serve part of a stabilizing force for the whole world. Under this scenario, the United States will gradually depart from Europe to concentrate aiding the peoples of Latin America, Mexico, Brazil, Argentina, and Chile, who are in badly need of technical issues. For ourselves, we are prepared to pool our resources with the Americans to build joint space stations. Russia, having gained peaceful borders, will able to tranquilly to develop its economy and prosper. No separatism or discrimination by national orientation. Its people will be fused into a single Russian nation by the great Russian language and ruble. Russian will echo with the meanings held by American or European. With liberation of Europe from borders, passport controls, work residency limits, a system of mutual cooperation among nations aimed at eliminating discrimination and human rights will emerge. A rapid action force consisting of Russian, German, and Chinese troops will be unleashed in the region of Europe or Asia that threatens Europe in conflict. With the same approach possibly being used by Americans on the entire American continent. A rapid action force of French, Portuguese, Italian, Spanish, and British troops will similarly police Africa. These armies, by reacting quickly to local conflicts, could prevent the outbreak of a Third World War. Arsenals of nuclear, chemical, bacterial, neutron, and other yet uninvented weapons could be reduced to a minimum through strict monitoring. By regulating the birth rate, we can avoid an excess population that leads to widespread hunger. We can also ease the suffering through health education and the timely transfer of surplus foods to the areas of natural disasters. Climatic conditions must be considered as a part of any settlement policy. It clearly makes no sense to set people in regions dominated by droughts or floods where man doesn't naturally belong. People once set in a chaotic manner, relying on their senses to find water, grassland, and food. Today we perhaps ought to not settle in regions that are economically and ecologically unhealthy and offer little promise of economic development and transportation. Consider, for example, Russia's northern regions, where settlement is possible but always bounded by limitations. To squander enormous resources of light and heat in Russia's northern country is wasteful when civilization can be developed in a naturally warm area such as Rostov, Konstor, and Stavropol, even further south where the sun always shines and the temperature is above 68 degrees Fahrenheit, and in the winter 30 above 86 degrees Fahrenheit. In the summer, and harvesting can occur year-round. Let northern Siberia serve as a storehouse from which, with temporary workers employed for short periods, we can extract the wealth of mineral resources and fuel. But let's develop industry and housing, mainly in the South, where we can relax, convulse, study, and multiply. In the South, less clothing is required, less food consumed, less energy wasted, life is cheaper and more bountiful in the South, where everything grows, whether apricots, plum, or citrus fruits. Nature is so benign and gentle that there's no waiting for rivers to thaw before barges can deliver raw material and manufactures. The South means year-round transportation, excellent concrete highways, and jet runways that don't crack in the cold, railroad transportation that doesn't require heavy maintenance, thanks to warm summer rains that wash the cars and moving stock. It means having enough of everything simply because the South is the South means relaxation, recuperation, and educational and research centers. Scattering our population over the vast 22 million square kilometers of territory now, compromising our country, requiring enormous resources from our communications, transport, and heating is needless. Instead, we can concrete the bulk of our population in the southern regions of Russia and former Kazakhstan and Tladli, Kurgan, Verny, Furnas, and the Donchub, towards the Indian Ocean and the Caucasus, Rostov region, Krasnodar region, and Stavropol on the Black Sea, Caspian Sea, and the restored Aral Sea of the Indian Ocean. Into those southern regions that are suburbi fit for habitation, the population will gradually be resettled, the Russian automatically becoming the dominant language. No need for 5 languages. Instead, everyone will gradually choose to speak Russian, which will soon be dominant in Russia as English is becoming in Europe. It is not right that Russian spoken for 200 years ago by all the peoples of Russia should perish or give 10 or 15 languages that lack a sufficiently large lexicon, technical vocabulary, and literacy potential to become the tongue of a space-age nation. Such I see it, the future of the Russians.